I had to pray for God to reveal the Bible to me. And I'm saying that there's something that older people have learned that helped them survive going around this planet 80 some times. You better catch on, because what's scaring me, what I believe is getting ready to happen, which I hope doesn't happen. I down in my basement, my mother, who died at 80 some years old, she gave me a black pot. It's a big black pot where she washed clothes in, where she made soap in, that she cooked in, and she made me promise that I would hold that pot in case the family needed it again. And what that pot is designed for, that if we ever get to the point that the grocery stores close up, I know how to raise a garden. If they couldn't get meat, that I know how to raise a hog, that I could take the fat from that hog and make soap, that I could wash my clothes and wash myself, that I could take that pot and cook brumley stew to feed my family, that I could take that pot and wash my clothes and keep them clean. She knew you always got to be prepared for the worst.
Greetings. Welcome to another amazing episode of Life Empowered Living. Welcome to the living room. This is the first time that I have actually ever done on set, but I am so glad that it's with these two amazing individuals. I need to introduce you to my favorite people, James Daniels and Martha Daniels. Woo! I'm so glad that both of you are here with us on today. And let me tell you, we're going to be talking about a plethora of things, not only from home and family and marriage, but also about the careers that these individuals have been able to successfully carry and manage throughout their entire life. Now, let me just also start with this very first thing. I understand that they have an anniversary coming up. They will be celebrating 55 years in marriage. Congratulations. You say wow like you're surprised.
Thank you.
So I will start with you just on that perspective. What's the gold? What's the secret?
Communication, talking to each other, being each other's friend, loving each other, being each other's protector. You know, I at any cost, I want to protect him, and I want him to do the same for me.
Now, that's lovely, Mother, but I'm going to push back because people do that real good for about 5 or 10 years. You've now managed to do it for 55. How did you do it?
When you love someone, you want to protect them. You want to communicate with them. What I try to do is put his interest above my interest. You know, I want his interest to be above my interest. It's not all about me. First thing, you know, I don't want to be selfish in the relationship. I don't want it to be all about me. I want it to be about us. And if I have a decision to make, it's usually I try to put his needs in front of mine.
Thank you so much for sharing. What would you add to that, Deke?
I would like, one of the things that we were talking earlier about our value systems being very close, and the family that she came from and I came from, her mother wanted Mr. Johnson to take the lead in the family. Martha is the same way. She wanted me to take the lead in the family, but I want to explain to you that she was submissive, but not the way sometimes I hear people talking about submissive, that she's going to do everything I tell her to do, when I tell her to do it, how much seasoning to put in the pot. And that's not type of submission that I'm talking about. She wanted me to take the lead according to the way the Bible takes it and lead the family in the right direction. She always had a famous quote that, as long as you lead the family in the right way, I will follow you. But in her doing that, it put order into the family. The children saw order. If things was going too far to the left or too far to the right, they knew that the final say of whether you're going to go out and stay to 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock was your father. That was expected for the father to make the final decision. In her doing that, it helped keep the family united, because as old people used to say, I know young people don't know when you say you can't have two roosters in the barnyard because something will happen. But at the same token, I believe in loving your wife the way Christ loved the church. And if you love somebody, you don't hurt them. You don't do anything to embarrass them. You want to do what you can to support them. Like sometimes the kids would try to play one against the other, and I would say to them, I said, "What did your mother say?" But I said, "But then don't ask me. If she said it's blue, then that's what it is, blue." And when working with the kids, and they're all grown now, they come back and tell us that we were the united force. We had different opinions, and there were some times that I really goofed up. But she never said anything to me in front of the children. But when the kids were asleep, she said, "Now wait a minute, let me tell you, you get about this the wrong way. You shouldn't do it that way." And we would agree. And the next day I would come out and wouldn't say, "Hey, your mother just gave me a butt chewing." I would say, "But I've changed my mind as if it's coming from me, but it was coming from their mother."
And too, I think too, I always try to respect my husband. I see a lot of disrespect for the husband. I mean, embarrassing and talking to them like they're kids and stuff. I want to make sure that everybody knows, I respect my husband. I want my children to respect my husband. And if I don't respect him, I can't really expect for my kids to respect him. And when you go out in the community, nobody else gonna respect him because they know that you don't respect him. So I always make sure he got the respect that he deserved.
And I thank you for that.
I love that so much. And, we're talking about marriage and we just jumped right in. But I know one of the things that we were also talking about is the communication in marriage. How did you, it's easy to say communicate, but I also know that that's not the easiest thing to do. So, what are some strategies that you've done to intentionally communicate in healthy manners so that way you are building the relationship rather than tearing it down?
One of the things that we make as part of communication is that it's understood that you have to tell your partner the absolute truth. Meaning that if you don't tell the other partner exactly what you feel, exactly what you think, you're lying. Because you're forcing the partner to make a decision on what you have not said. So we work very hard on letting the other person know. Then after the other person knows what the other one thinks, then we work on a win-win situation. What is the best way that we can do this that we both can walk away feeling good about it? But the foundation to our communication is we have to be straightforward exactly what the problem is. And that means there's times of crucial conversations. And I know for my part, when there's time for a crucial conversation, Martha has a famous saying, and I can quote it. Now, we've got to have a talk about this. That means a crucial conversation is coming. And that means I need to be quiet and listen to what she has to say. And one of the other things in communicating, we make it perfectly clear to not have conversations in anger. What I mean by don't say I disagree, because I do. I disagree, and sometimes she disagrees. And one of the things that I will do, if I'm very upset about something, I won't talk about it. Or I'll wait a few minutes and I'll write her a text and tell her exactly how I feel about it. Because I got the feeling that if I were to speak at that time, you let words go forward that you can't bring back. So I've learned early not to say exactly what I think.
I am so glad that you said that. So there are two things already that, and I know this, but I'm already impressed in this conversation. One is that even at this point, after 55 years, right? Or at 55 years, we're still saying that we don't always agree.
No.
Understanding that as two individuals, we're still individuals.
Yes.
Just because we've been married and we've chosen this thing doesn't mean that you've lost who you are or that she's lost who she is. And so, Mother, here's my question for you. How did you maintain the autonomy of who you are in this marriage?
I always I've always known who I was. I know who my husband is. I know who I am, and I appreciate who he is because actually, uh, no, I did not. I went to college, but I really didn't graduate. I got into my third year. I didn't graduate, but I never let that stop me from being less than, you know. I'm not less than, I'm not more than, but I appreciate my husband. So therefore, I've always known who I was. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the things that I've accomplished in life. I've been a great mother. I've been a great wife. I have worked jobs. I did a lot of things. So I've always known who I was. So, and I'm very proud of the accomplishments that I've made.
To add on it, one of the things I like about Marty is this. I know who I am. And one of the reasons that I was attracted to her over 55 years ago is that she was different. She thought different. She looked at things different. So if I'm going to learn, I don't need a carbon copy of me. I don't really think I could live with a carbon copy of me.
So one is enough?
One is enough. Sometimes I get tired of me. But I want her pureness, understand, what she really thinks about things. I don't want her to feel that she's intimidated, that she can't tell me what she thinks. And I like the fireness in her. The fire that I saw 55 years ago, she still has it in there. She will get me straight in a minute. And I may not like it at the time, but I sit back and think about it, that it's just important to me for her to be herself. And going back to the original point I was trying to make, I know what I think. I know what I want. And I want to tag on about the point about the college. When we first got married, we had to make a decision that both of us had a high school diploma. I think I was making $64 a week as a gate guard. And we come to the conclusion that we're not going to make it off of this paycheck. One of us is going to have to go to college. And we agreed. She went for a few years, and then the kids started coming. She said, "We want you to go." But she made it perfectly clear. I want you to understand, I'm going to support you. And she did. She helped me write my papers. She made things work while I was working. I worked and went to college full time. But she said, "I want to make it understand that the fruit from this degree that you get, that I sacrificed by wearing my mother's clothes, by going without, that when the fruits come, 50% of that is mine." That was understood.
Come on, negotiations.
Right.
I like it.
This is a business deal.
And she said, "This is a business deal." And still today, all investments, all money coming into the house, all budgets, she has a 50% say of where every dollar goes in the house. Because we made that understanding, my God, over 50 years ago. Because she sacrificed and staying with the kids. Then the reward we got, I'm really pleased with our kids. We didn't have a whole lot of problem with our kids. And I got to give credit because she was there protecting the interests of the kids. There was a lot of times when I came home at Christmas, I didn't even know what the kids were getting for Christmas because I was just coming in for rest. All three of my kids, by the way, are born in August. August 11th, August 26th, and August the 21st. Because I was never home much except the month of November. So I guess what I'm saying, there was two portions. The romantic part of which I still love, and she still gets on me every time she walks by, ain't nobody around, I reach and gooch her. But I
I love it. Come on, tell the whole story. Because we want to know after 55, are you still being gooched?
I'm trying to say is marriage is a journey, and you have to constantly build it every day. It doesn't end after the honeymoon. I'm going through a phase now I've never gone through before, and that is getting old, being sick. I mean, I always said, you always took the vows that until death do you part, through sickness and health. 2 years ago, I had 3 blood clots, was in the hospital, almost died. She stood by me. I came out. I couldn't, I had lost partial use of this right hand. I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't. I was in a position I had never been in before as a man. But she stepped forward. I said, I can't go to church, Monty. I said, I can't tie my shoes. I can't button my shirt. And she says, yes, you can. I will tie your shoes. I will button your shirt. And I was telling her the other day, I got to the point where I could button my shirt. I've got to the point where I can put some shoes on because of that support. I'm saying marriage is more than these soap opera things you see on television. I'll leave that alone.
You're right. It's more than that. You're right. It is a journey. Sickness, in sickness, you got to think of that because as we age, we're getting older and we're not the same people we were. I mean, our bodies are breaking down. Mine is. I don't feel the same way I did when I was 50. I'm 77 almost, and I'm feeling it. So we got to understand that. And those vows you take, you better know what you're saying. And you better know what you're saying because it might come to the point where it might be sickness.
Yeah, and you have to honor or not, because I've seen that too, right?
Two people walk off.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that just in this conversation already, I've observed, especially when you're talking about those difficult conversations or telling your partner everything because of the level of trust that you have, that trust part really stands out, that she might have said something you didn't like, but you trust that there was no harm intended. It just was a tough topic. It was just a difficult conversation. So how did you get to the point where you could really understand that even if she did, talk to you about something you didn't like, you trusted that she wasn't trying to harm you, but she really was trying to keep the family moving forward or whatever the topic was?
I always looked at Martha as like a best friend. And to me, a good friend is just like a rare diamond. You don't find them every day. We established before we got married our engagement period. We spent over 8 months of nearly every day sitting in the park or either on the porch of her home talking to each other and telling each other about each other. Now I prayed. I asked God for a good wife. I wanted a good wife. And I believe I know he gave me a good one. But the trust level, I know her weaknesses and she knows mine. I don't discuss her weaknesses and she doesn't discuss my weaknesses. But I always say to somebody, if you really want to know who Jim Daniels is, you talk to Martha. She knows me. If you want to, I know her. But we operate according to the Bible. And what I mean by that, where this trust thing comes in, it says that when a man and a woman marry, they become one. So if I do damage to her reputation, I'm really doing damage to my reputation. Because she is a part of me with that covenant that she made and I made with God. So to me, when I see someone putting their wife down, I don't understand that because you're putting yourself down. You made that covenant with God. And so if I made a covenant with God and I trust God, who am I to come back and say, well, I don't trust my wife? Until she proves that she cannot be trusted. And she has not proven that she cannot be trusted. Has she made some mistakes? Yes. Have I made some mistakes? Yes. But it wasn't because of premeditated distrust for each other.
I was saying too about if I really want to know the truth about something, and I really want to know the real truth, I ask him. Because and just like I will tell him the truth. If he really want to know the truth about something, he asks me. I'm not going to try to, this is my husband. A lot of people will tell you anything you want to hear, and knowing the whole time they lying. They know this, But my husband, if I want to know something, I ask him. And it hurts sometimes when somebody set you down and tell you about yourself. It hurts, but at least I know he did it in love. He did it in respect, but it was the truth.
Yeah. And that's the question. How did you get to the point where you understood, you knew that it was being done in love? It might have hurt it, but just that nuance of versus he just trying to hurt me, or he's just trying to break me down, or he's just trying to diminish me as a woman. Those are the kind of the newer terms that we hear these days.
I know for a fact my husband loves me. Always have. Why? I don't know. I don't know. Really. He loves me. Anybody in that church know.
Mm-hmm.
Even on his job, before these people saw me, they knew me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one way. That is one reason I knew. And so just for him loving me as much as he did, he wouldn't hurt me for nothing and not know it.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't do it for nothing. So therefore, I trust him, and I know if he's saying it, it's out of love.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not trying to hurt me, you know. So if you know somebody love you, they have your best interests at heart. It's easy, you know.
Well, one of the things that I do love Martha.
He does.
And I do. A lot of people call it henpecking, call it what they want to, but I can spend. If you ask me would I want to spend the rest of my life on an island with $1 million, or you spend Martha, give me Martha. We started out with nothing. The day that we got married, I had $1.25 in my pocket. For our honeymoon, I could only buy her a slice of coconut pie. And not saying to be boast, but if she wanted to go back and buy the store, we could do it. But but because of our teamwork and our trust. See, a lot of times people say they know what love is. But love is, you can build anything with love. And I'm a walking example of it. See, she said she don't know why I loved her. Let me tell you something. Martha, and she's 77, I still find her attractive to me. I still like to look in her eyes and talk to her. But when she was 21, 22, that child was a stone fox. You hear me? And I know at the base that I was at, she could have dated any guy, had degrees and everything else, but she chose me, which I will never know why she chose me. But I know as a fact that I always felt proud and honored with her at my side. I always felt honored and proud that she taught my children to respect and love me. I always felt honored and proud that she looked up to me as her husband. I came to work here in Milwaukee, and one of the most racist places I ever worked at. Why didn't I quit? Because I'd rather face that racism than go home and tell Martha I could not take care of her and the kids. That's how much I loved her. Because she gave me dignity. She gave me understanding. Where I was weak, she made me strong. She made me stand tall. I believe a wife has two goals in a marriage. Either she can make a man or she can break him. And it doesn't take me what you call emotional intelligence, whatever. I'm not round long for I can figure whether you making it or you breaking it.
That's so good. I love that so much. And it's interesting in today's times, and just from my current vantage point of relationships, not only mine, but those that I've been around and I've gotten to experience, to understand what we really are doing. And I think one of the things that you talked about, well, I'm thinking about as you're talking about this, is the fact that there's so many influences.
Yes, it is.
And so how did you manage, and maybe you didn't have them to that degree, but all of the influences. So Mother, use you for an example. Deke was traveling quite a bit, right? So did you have people in your space talking about, well, you could do this. He not here no way. Or, you know what I mean? Just sowing discord.
No, I didn't, because I've always, I became a Christian not too long after we got married, a couple of years. So I always had the church, and I always had people that believed like I believe. They was going the same way I was going. So no, I didn't really have a lot of outside interference. It was just the people at my church. And I didn't have family where we were, in which they would have been fine anyway. But I didn't. It was fine. The people, my space, it was a great, at that time.
Martha came from a very strong family, and I still have a great respect for her mother. Before I got married, the truth be told, I played the streets. I liked the ladies. I'm not proud of it, but I did. After I got married, I quit that. But I remember one night I was in San Francisco, and I called back to speak to Marty because all the guys I was with, they was getting ready to go out on the town with the bars, and the bars lead to the ladies, and the ladies lead to other things. And I called Martha's mother, and I said to her, "Can I talk to Martha?" She said, "Martha's not here right now, but I will go get her. She's at the church." If Martha's mother had said to me, "I don't know where she's at. She's out with some of her friends," that would have gave me the key. Well, you party, I'm going to party. But Martha's mother was smart enough to know that, and she would not tolerate any foolishness from Martha when I wasn't around. And she let me know that. She didn't come out and say it to me, but she said it in her words and her communicating back and forth to me that she would not tolerate that. And I think her mother played a major role of us building a strong marriage. For her, Mr. Johnson was a prime example of what marriage should be like. I think if there's one legacy that I hope to leave behind for my children, and it bothers me when I hear people saying that it's not worth your effort for marriage. That's not true, in my perspective. It's like anything else. It's what you put into it. If you don't put anything in there, don't expect to get anything out of it. But I'm not much of a TV person because a lot of it that I hear is fake. It's not real. It's not true. If that's the case, then why movie stars getting divorced? It's why movie stars not staying together. So I don't listen to a lot of that. I do a lot of reading. I'm a researcher by nature. I like to research things. I enjoy YouTube. If me and Marty, if you say we'll have a disagreement, she come in and she wants to watch Chicago PD. I want to watch YouTube, but we got other TVs. If I don't want to watch that. I want because of the career that I've had in my life. You got to remember, I was the first generation out of slavery. After the Civil Rights Bill was passed, blacks were coming into management. And it was a totally different culture. There was no black managers who had been in there 15, 20 years to tell you which way to go. You had to learn for yourself. So the only way I could learn is if I hear them say something, I write it down, go home at night, research it, and study it to the point I know. I'll give you an example. I was in Oakland one time, Martha was with me, and they were giving tests every day about words that was used in the IRS. And the IRS speaks a total different language than the normal population. I would come home at night and with Martha and study the words that we would go over the next day. And by the end of training, I had the second highest score in the class and had not been in the IRS a month. So what I did with her, we would sit down and figure out ways of how could I come around the shortcomings and understand the dynamics of the job and understand what different types of managers, be able to spot a Machiavellian, be able to spot a person with a tank personnel, be able to say, well, how do I adjust and make it? So what I'm saying to you, we spent most of our life. Sometimes I would come home and say, Marty, I don't had enough. I'm going tomorrow, and I'm gonna throw that so and so out the window. And she say, don't do that. Let's pray on it. Let's think about it and figure out what's the best way to do it. And that's what marriage has meant to us. It's been a journey, and right now this is my co-pilot. I guess I'll be saying to her now, get ready. Let the wheels down. We're getting ready to land this journey. It's been a successful journey, and what we're focusing on there, I want to go on to the other part of the journey, and I really, really, really would like to see Jesus Christ.
Nice. That's so good. And all of that was amazing. But I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about your career. And you just gave us a little bit of a snapshot, but go ahead and talk about how you got started, where you ended up, where you retired at, and then we're going to talk about some of your accolades too.
Okay. Well, I started as a young boy in North Carolina. My father came back from the Second World War, and he spent around 4 years in France. In fact, he was there so long that he could speak French fluently when he came back. And I listened to him talk that he wanted to get the point across to me that there were other places in the world that was different than the Jim Crow North Carolina that we lived in. And he made it perfectly clear to me that you cannot allow racism to stop you from meeting your objective. If you have your will and you have your desire, you can move forward. And that really stuck with me to hear him say that. And he was a reader. He was always reading, but he was out of his, I don't want to say class, but he had seen so much and done so much, he had problems in getting that information out to his peers. He did a lot of it. He was superintendent, school superintendent, Sunday school. He was a deacon in the church. But I left home, went to Washington, D.C., didn't have any place to stay, slept in the parks. And a police officer said to me, they've got a new program under the civil rights thing called Job Corps in Morganfield, Kentucky. That's where you need to go. Well, I didn't have anything to eat, didn't have no money, no job, anything. So I got on the bus and rode for 2 days and was dumb enough. They told me one of the things that really I wanted to see Breckenridge, they said, this is a bluegrass state. And I said to myself, I have never seen bluegrass. Maybe I need to go out there and see bluegrass. And I went out there, and the first thing I was shocked that people lied to you. There was no bluegrass. It was green grass, just like it was in Carolina. But I went in and I studied electronics. I remember Mr. Williams taught me how to build a radio, piece by piece, transistor, vacuum tubes, and everything. And when the class was over with after about 6 weeks, he wouldn't let you test it anything. But on that day, he said, turn your radios. And if you did it right, he said, it will come on. And I turned mine, and mine was one of the 2 or 3 that came on. That did a whole lot for me. Then I joined what they call the Cadet Force, which was a team of teaching us about policemen, to have a better understanding of police officers and everything. So, and going through Job Corps, when I came through Job Corps, I worked my way, came in as a patrol officer on a federal base there to sergeant, went to college, and was the Hall of Fame thing was that I was one of the few students, maybe the only one, I don't know, that worked their way from a student all the way up to director. And it never been done before that a kid off the street worked themselves up through the ranks. But I did it. And I wanted... Yes.
And I just want to just stop for one moment to just let people know what we're talking about, because in 1979, you were inducted into the U.S. Department Labor Hall of Fame. And that's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking. They thought at that time what I accomplished was they just couldn't believe. But if you go back and look at those signs and look at the pictures of the Hall of Fame, there's one person standing at my side. Martha made me believe that I could accomplish anything. See, that's what a woman does for her husband. For me, she made me say, if she said you can go to the moon, I believed I could go to the moon. She just had that much confidence and faith in me. I hope I'm saying it the right way. I don't want to give you the impression that Martha leads me around like a kid, because I'm not. But she has a tremendous amount of influence. I always said to somebody, if I got in trouble and the police had this house surrounded, go get Martha. She could talk me out of here. But that's the type of person she was, that I knew the men that were interested in her. You know, probably your husband will tell you, men talk. They talk about nice-looking women they're interested. And they would be talking to me about her, not knowing that I was dating her. And they wanted to talk to her. And when it came out in the paper that we were engaged and we were getting married, they said, "You never said a word." That's always been my style. From a man's point of view, if you got a good thing going with a lady and you talking to another fella, you stupid. Just something you don't talk about. That's something I don't talk. I just never did talk about it. But my point of saying that led to my career, that I came out and became a director. I was sent. I went into residential living, where I was working with staff. I was down in Mississippi, where I went to take an old Air Force base and turn it into a center. 123 staff, 500 students. And when I finished with that career, I went to housing authority. No, I left Mississippi, went to Joliet, where I took an old school, went to Washington, Congress and O'Brien, got over $4 million to rehab that and turn it into one of the outstanding Job Corps centers in the nation. And then from there, I left and went to Joliet Housing Authority, and I went in there. That's where I really learned about politics. I didn't know a whole lot about politics. I'd never been involved in politics. And I came in, I'm a people's person, wanted to make things better for people. And what happened is that they wanted the housing authority to get involved in pushing old lady out of office. And I knew, because I've always been a researcher, that this lady was one of the first people to get into the county board, but she was only one or five or six. I remember she didn't have a whole lot of weight. So they thought she wasn't doing anything, but I understood enough about politics from Miss Odom, my civics teacher, that you have to have a majority a lot of times to rule in things. So, but what that led to was from there, I left from there and went to housing with the housing authority. I left from there. Then I said, I'm going to a new job. I'm going to Milwaukee. I came here because they were having a problem in getting top management minorities into Milwaukee, because the pipeline over the years, if you keep putting one ethnic group in the pipeline, that's all that's going to get hired. And I came in, and my job was to pave the way for others. And I had the experience, but my problem was I was one of the first and only blacks that came into Milwaukee in the federal government as a GS-13. That's two grades down from the top. And it created resentment that you would not believe. The jobs had been promised to whites who had been here for 10 and 15 years, and I didn't realize I was walking into a hornet's nest. But I came in and I worked and I came through it. And then the last job I had was I was getting ready to retire, and my wife, who's been a member of the Church of God in Christ all her life, said to me, we are trying to put a church together. And when I first came to Milwaukee, my job was to rebuild and supervise the restructure of all the IRS offices in the state of Wisconsin. Well, Martha said, well, why don't you help them at the church? And I said, I don't know nothing about no church. I mean, in the federal government, I got my architects, I got my lawyers, I've got everybody I need that's in a package. So I need you to do this, and you need to do that. The church is a group of volunteers. I didn't know how are you going to pull together a group of volunteers to do something like that, be a part of it. But like I said again, God was there, and working with your husband and other members of the team, we were able to do that. So that was my career, from a kid coming from North Carolina, coming to Job Corps, Housing, and Treasury Department. And what are the things would I say that helped me the most achieve the goals and things that I set at? It wasn't me. I will believe until the day I die that I was favored by God. Because when I look back at some of the places and some of the things that I've done and seen, there's no way a backward kid out of the fields of North Carolina could have did it.
And you said something a little bit earlier before we joined was you talked about the transistor radio. And the first time that you had heard a transistor radio, you were in the fields, is the way that you described it. And then here you are talking about now that on your journey, you actually built one. And now here you are talking about all of the things that you were able to build and have your hand into creating. And I'm sure that wasn't without, right, obstacle and challenges you were just talking about as you moved here to Milwaukee and some of the resistance. What do you say to the us's now who are in corporate spaces that are experiencing, you can call it racism, you can call it pushback, you can call it that was supposed to be my job, but now they've given it to you, so now I hate you. All of the obstacles of trying to really grow and mature within an organization. What do you say to folks that's navigating that?
I say the most wonderful book for screening anything that you look at is the Bible. And one of the quotes in the Bible, beware of those that you labor among. And what I mean by that is when you talk about emotional intelligence, you need to have the ability to understand where the other person is coming from. And I'm not saying walk around with a crutch on your shoulder and trying to hate people, but you must be able to identify your enemy because they're there. And they're in the workplace. I don't care where you go, they're there. Identify them, plot yourself a plan of how to get around it. Like I think one of the best books that Procter Gamble allowed a couple called Dixon to write, The Black Manager. I talked to you way back. And what they did is that blacks were having such a problem of adjusting in a white environment. They looked at it from a scientific point of view. These are things you have to do to adjust to what's going on around you. The higher you get up in a position, I don't say anything. I heard young people talk about, I'm going to the top, I'm going here, and I'm going to be making six figures, and I tell them, the higher you get up, the best way I can explain it is put a 6-month baby in the middle of a bed and walk out of the room and expect for it not to roll over and roll off the bed. Because you are going to be faced with so many temptations to knock you off that you have to be aware of it. Now, if you know that baby can roll off that bed, you stand and you guard it. But if you don't know that baby will roll off that bed, you'll walk out into the fall. And I tell my children are not, they don't know what pure racism is. Now, a lot of times I hear people say they focus on, you talk about Jim Crow and all these things, they're focused on Trump. Trump is not your problem. It's the million of people who voted for him that's the problem. That's the problem. And you must be able to identify them in your workplace, where you eat, where you sleep. And how do you deal with racism? An old man told me one time, he said, you deal with racism the same if you got on the elevator going to the 31st floor and there was some foul odor in there. You either quit breathing or you smell it and keep going. And racism the same way. You find a way to get around it. You find something that you love. I loved my family. I really love my family. And I would talk to myself every day that I went to work. You're not going to force me out. Now, if I had to do all over again, if I know what I know now, I would spend most of my years building a business for myself. Then I could have created the environment that I worked in. I could have put the people around me that I wanted. I could have made families go home at night and think about the joy they had instead of being discriminated against and misused if I knew what I knew now.
Now, and you know what? That's such a good point. And so I got to ask you this question. How do you now, knowing what you know now, and I think this podcast is amazing because you'll be able to pass some of that down, but in order to do either one of those, whether it's rise up the ranks in a traditional corporate environment or start your own, there's a work ethic that is required in order to be successful. So I think in my personal opinions, when I'm watching some of this stuff on social media, when I'm watching some of this stuff on YouTube, it looked like it's so easy. I can do it. But there's an ethic behind it. How do you teach work ethic?
Well, I think one of the things that I tried to teach my children, and when they were coming up, I think your work ethic start at home. And I held them accountable. If you were responsible for taking out the trash, you took out the trash. I also, if you were to do the snow, you did the snow. I came home once, and the mother was cutting the grass, and the boy was sitting down watching cartoon. And I made it perfectly clear, if I saw that again, there's going to be big trouble. That I want you to be accountable and to doing things. Then, when they got into teenage years, I wanted them to work at McDonald's and different places like that. I stressed very heavy on them to uh, be on time, to be accountable, whatever. I remember one morning one of the kids come to me and said, "Well, Daddy, I just they fired me off of this job because they didn't like me because I was black." And I looked him straight in the face. I said, "That's not true. I've been watching you every Saturday morning. You've been going out here 15, 20, 30 minutes late." I said, "You go tell that man that you apologize for not being at work. He has invested $50,000, $60,000 to get that French child going. And you apologize for not being there." And I said, "I'm coming behind you and check. If you didn't do it, there's going to be a price to pay." He went back to that man, told that man, "I apologize for what I did." And the man said, "Your father told you to do this?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Get to work." So the point I'm trying to say is that your work ethic is learned from home. I use school as an example for good work ethics, meaning that my kids went to school, they had teachers they didn't like, they had teachers that created problems for them. But I told them, you learn to work around difficult people. Why, Daddy? Because when you get on the workforce, every supervisor you got, you're not going to like. You have to learn how to work around them to get to the objective. Problem I was running with the Treasury Department, I didn't like the supervisor that I had, but I love bringing the paycheck home to my wife and kids. And you have to set your priorities. And good work ethics start at home and teaching your kids how to survive. You hear me talk about, I believe in the 5 windows of life of teaching my children. Those 5 windows of life with God, which screen everything which is right and wrong. I wanted them to know how to be able to feed themselves independent of me, because one day me and Martha are going to be gone. I wanted them to be able to clothe themselves independent of me, because one day we're going to be gone. I wanted them to provide shelter for themselves. And I also wanted them to know how to manage money, because coming out of slavery, our people did not come up in a culture where they could make a lot of money. They came up in a culture that they were used for other folks to make a lot of money. So how to make that money, how to invest that money, we had to scratch and learn it for ourselves. So if we didn't teach our kids how to do that, one of the things we work with the kids on is impulsive spending. So at Christmas time, I would make a deal with the kids. I said, "Listen, this is how much money we're going to spend on each one of you for Christmas, on one condition, that you wait until the white sales come about." And they would. And right today, if you go to each one of the houses, you will not see a whole lot of gifts and stuff like that. They wait and they learn how to use their money and not doing impulsive spending. So what I'm saying I think the biggest lesson where young people are failing, they're not getting those lessons at home. And by the time, people are looking to the schools to give it to them. They're looking the churches to give it to them. But I'm telling you, that ain't gonna get it.
Yeah. And so, and you hit it right on the head. A lot of people are not getting it, right? And then your young people are having children at young ages too. And so there's really nobody to pass it along. And so we're here now. So where do we go? Especially if our elders are not saying, if our elders are not teaching. So where do we get the knowledge from?
Well, one of the things that I try to do now is, if somebody came up with the crazy notion at our church to let me teach Sunday school, and I enjoy it, because when I prepare for a Sunday school class, I prepare for it like I did for a research paper in college. Try to approach it from 3 or 4 different ways. But number one, I try to give a brief history of the book that we're coming out of, and number 2, I want to learn what is happening in the lesson. But number 3, I want the students to walk away with not learning what happened on Sunday, but to walk away on Monday and knowing how to apply what they learned on Sunday.
Yes. It's so important to do. And so there are places where we can get it from, but we have to, one, know that we need it. And sometimes we don't even know that we need vegetables, right? What's wrong? I'm full. I had McDonald's. You mean I actually need some green vegetables? What is this? And so you have that. And then two, that there are places, but I think to your point too, sometimes we have to be proactive and willing to go after it. And so I appreciate you for sharing that. When you think about where you are now, when you think about your journey, and you think about this season of your life, if you thought of it as a chapter in a book, what would you call this season?
I would call it, to myself, being straightforward. I would say the chapter in this book is looking back on a successful journey of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels. Things we set out to do, we did them. And we are relaxed at the age that we are, with no stress, no bills. Now, we don't have a lot of things, but we have no stress, no bills. We watch our grandkids. We can pretty much do what we want to do. And we're trying to do whatever we can and to help. Because you know me, I am very laid back in unless you ask me what I think. I came forward, me and Marty talked about this in inviting you into our home, and we thought that this book I was reading about, the 30 Lessons of Life, that's a mistake. Is not that a lot of older people are feeling that they're out of out of date, that we should come forward and tell. And one thing I've learned about people, I believe you should tell them the truth, because I believe they are intelligent enough to make their own decision. Mm-hmm. And you need to tell them what's worked for you. And I felt good about talking about this because I was looking at data, and I'm a data-driven person, that thousands of other people in this country agree with some of the things that myself and my wife have gone through.
I love that so much. Now, Mother, would you say your chapter is the same? This part of this season of your life, what are you naming this chapter?
As the world turns, everything is turning.
As the world turns.
Everything is moving. Life is moving. I mean, we started and we are almost at the end, and we have had a good life. So the world has not stopped. It's been turning the whole time. So I would say as the world turns for me. And it's almost turning to the point where we're going to be getting off, And now we're making plans for that also, We thinking about our spiritual life. We thinking about a burial. We thinking about that sort of stuff now, which is not easy to think about. But you've got to start thinking about that.
We've already have put aside money for burial. Already have gone to funeral home and discussed what coffins or whatever. One of the things that we look at life is that every year, it takes a year to go around the sun on this planet. And I've gone around this planet and came back on the other side on top of this planet, stand on this planet 78 times. And it's time for us to eventually get off of this planet. We didn't sit around and beg anybody to help us. We didn't sit around and plead for anyone to help us. We prayed to God, and we strongly believe faith without works is dead. If we thought it, we did it. We were very careful in who we listened to. And what I mean by that, if you tell us something, you have to be qualified to know what you're talking about. And if you're talking, and I look behind you and I don't see no trend analysis of your success, we'll we we don't we don't listen to you. We don't argue with you. But when we get back into this household, we say, we're not going that route. This is the route that we're going to go. And I would say to young people, find somebody that you can talk to. And really do believe there's old people that you want to talk to. But like sometimes I talk to my son. He'll say, "Well, Dad, this is what I see now. That's what it used to be." And now people say that when you talk about the Bible, they say, "Well, that's what it used to be 2,000." No, it's not. If you pray to God and ask the Holy Spirit to reveal the Bible to you, the Bible will reveal itself in a way that can help you today. But if you read it as this is literature or something in the past, you're gonna walk away with nothing. I had to pray for God to reveal the Bible to me. And I'm saying that there's something that older people have learned that helped them survive going around this planet 80 some times. You better catch on, because what's scaring me, what I believe is getting ready to happen, which I hope doesn't happen. I down in my basement, my mother, who died at 80 some years old, she gave me a black pot. It's a big black pot where she washed clothes in, where she made soap in, that she cooked in, and she made me promise that I would hold that pot in case the family needed it again. And what that pot is designed for, that if we ever get to the point that the grocery stores close up, I know how to raise a garden. If they couldn't get meat, that I know how to raise a hog, that I could take the fat from that hog and make soap, that I could wash my clothes and wash myself, that I could take that pot and cook brumley stew to feed my family, that I could take that pot and wash my clothes and keep them clean. She knew you always got to be prepared for the worst.
That's so good. That is so good. We got to go find a pot. We got to find a pot. And now I have to ask you this question, and this is going to be a weird question because I think about legacy, the term legacy, from a couple different vantage points. But for you, at this point, what does legacy look like for you? And I know you talk about the kids, but what do you want to leave as your legacy?
I would like to leave the legacy that I love my people, and I did the best that I could to make things better for my people. I think I failed. Legacy is that I don't think I've done a good enough job with the young people and preparing them for the future. I haven't done a job that's satisfactory to myself.
Well, you're on the right track today, so don't worry about it. You coming back with a vengeance. God will redeem the time. I love that so much. What would you like to say? Well, in terms of legacy, what do you think about?
I think everything I do come off the biblical point of view. I'm a Christian. My legacy is when people hear my name, I want them to think that I was a woman of God, that I was a mother, a wife, but mostly that I was a woman of God and that I love God. I want that to be my legacy. That's most important thing to me.
Thank you so much for sharing both of those. And I said that I think about legacy from two different vantage points. And so I wanted to hear what what your response was. But when I think about legacy also, and when I'm teaching this in corporate spaces, it's not just about what happens when we die, but it's also what happens when we leave the room. What are people saying about us after they've interacted with us? What are people saying about us when they know we're on the way? Because what kind of environment have we set around our name and our attitude? And so I can confidently say, if Sheldon gets on my nerves too much, I'm like, I'm calling Deacon Daniels. And it's funny, but it's also very, very true. And we had a moment, I think it was after my godfather had passed away, and Sheldon was just thinking about the strong men in my life, and you were on the list. And he said, how does it feel to have so many people, so many men want to protect you and look out for you? And And what we've always said, or what I've always said, is that God has always provided. He has always made a way. And that's tough because some people don't have it in, let's say, a traditional father. And because they didn't have it the way they wanted it, they don't know how to receive what God has given them. And I am one of those people who believe that God has done something amazing in giving me you and Mother Daniels. And I even tease like Tyrone and the other kids saying that I'm the favorite.
Right.
So I'm quick to say,
Right.
I'm the favorite. I don't know about y'all, but and so but when we think about, everything that we've talked about and the culmination, how did you juggle just in this? Because we've really talked about, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but we've talked about kind of marriage as a lane, and then we've talked about corporate as a lane. But these things intertwined. You didn't do them one at a time. You had to manage them together. At the same time, how did you manage the juggle of traveling so much and then also being a very present father and husband for the household?
Well, I think the most important thing comes back down to communication. Martha and myself agreed that I would love to do nothing more than to sit 24 hours a day, hold her hand, and look her in the eye. But we agreed that someone has to go get the bathing. And that person was me. We understood that every day I was gone, we talked by phone in the morning or at night. We had an agreement that she kept no secrets from me about the kids. She knew what I wanted with the kids, and we agreed what we wanted with the kids. And we worked towards those things together. And there was times that I felt like, this enough of this. It's just too hard. And nobody understands the stress that I'm going through. And I'm getting robbed. And she had a way of saying, in her very unique way, but that's your responsibility to take care of this family. That's your responsibility to lead this family. I will help you every step of the way. But you will take the lead role. And she never gave me the excuse to stop. I remember once she said to me, I was working, sometimes I come in and I fall asleep, write the paper in college. I was working, and it was hard. And she told me about 10 years later, she said, I was surprised that you made it out of college because of how hard you worked. I was a drill sergeant. She said, you were tired. And and I said, Marty, if you'd have told me that you didn't think I could have made it out of college, I would have stopped.
Wow.
I said, but the influence of you making me feel that I could do it is what kept me going. And that's what I mean by you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. If people around you are constantly putting negative weights on you, it'll pull you down. If people around you put balloons on you, it'll rise you up. I think one of the key things, of course, God favoring me, is that I've always been smart enough to surround myself with the right people. I don't like being around negative people. I don't like listening to a lot of negativity because what value is it? How much money do you make from it? How much growth do you get from it? Because I know one thing about the mind. The mind is one of the most unique computers ever God made. What you put in is what will come out. So I don't like putting negative things in my mind. I don't like hearing negative things because it may clog up some good logical thinking.
I love that. I love that. Do you want to add anything?
Sure. I know I was thinking about, you was thinking about Sam when he was working all the time. I always try to have, I worked like in the school system. I wanted to make sure when the kids left, I left. When the kids came back home, I came back home. We all got back home at the same time because I knew that he was working. He was gone like sometime a week or two at a time. So somebody had to be around with the kids. So I just wanted to make sure that the kids had stability, and that's how I worked it.
Well, I think one of the things you did too, and I'm not saying a woman has to do that. Please don't pattern me do it. It's something she did. I think she learned from my mother. I never came home and there wasn't a hot meal. Now, I'm not telling you I had money, I had travel, I could buy food any place I wanted to. But most times you go in a restaurant, you can't smell food until they bring it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you open the garage to come in this house, I could smell the aroma of the meal that she had done. And it did something to me to think that somebody who could have been sitting watching television, doing whatever, had taken the time to prepare a meal for me. And she used to do another thing. I didn't tell her to do it, but she would do it. She would say to the kids, when I would sit down at the table, wash my hands, sit down at the table, she would say to the kids, she would tell them to pass the food to your father. You always had one of them smart. I said, why? She would tell them because he went out and worked for her. That meant a lot to me. Right now, I heard the kids telling my grandkids, pass it. I don't think it should, but that's the honor and respect. Another thing she would do, every morning for over 50-some years, she would wake me up with a cup of coffee. A lot of people said, boy, you really got her trained? And no. I knew this morning she woke me up with a cup of coffee, she should have poured the whole pot on me because somebody had done that was crazy. But she was persistent in making me feel guilty by how kind she treated me. See, I learned what love really was from my wife. I didn't learn it from the home I came out of, and I didn't learn it from all of the women I went with. But I learned that love is not a sometime thing. It's an everyday thing. Whether you good, whether you bad, we're going to have an argument this afternoon. I guarantee you, around 5:30, she's going to say, what you want for dinner? Now, she may not say anything, but hand me that dinner, but she will always do that. And what happens to me at 55 years being around somebody, I had some friends, we used to say, these girls, they faking it. And I said, now you can't fake this no 55 years. She's been doing this. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you, one of the things that have kept me going, and I guess the biggest transition I make there, I know I got to die, but I don't want to leave Martha because I really believe nobody in the world can take care of her will as I will. But I know that's wrong. So there's somebody else out there will. I don't want her to leave me because I don't know how. I have not been able to put my head around how am I going to deal with that without her being in my presence. I mean, we talk from sun up until we go to bed talking. We just talk about everything. We've been so depressed by news that I keep saying, I can't hear no more of that. I don't hear no more about what's going on. But I'm saying all that to say that we've had a good life. We had good friends. And I'm going to say something, compliment to you. I like your ability to be persistent because I have a tendency that if a person is not persistent with me, I value it as not being that important to them. And therefore, if it's not important to them, it's not important to me. But your persistence and pushing triggers something in me. If she's going to push that hard, then who are you? Like me and Mom said, we just get ready. We're going to do this interview. She's actually, we're going to do it. I like your ability to tap into a senior senile, such as myself and my wife. I like that because I know the way we look at things is not the way the soap operas present those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say, and I'm looking at the time, and I knew it was going to go by, but this has been absolutely amazing. I am so humbled. I am honored. not only from the personal perspective, but also from the professional perspective, because I won't even call them nuggets, but the boulders of insight that you've given in this last hour. If people if they take one thing and apply it, their lives will be better. So I'm hoping that they do that. But again, thank you, Deke. Thank you, Mother, for taking time out to spend with me to talk about your life. You literally just put it all out there. And I think it's going to be impactful and transformational for many. I know it's impactful for me. So if we get people to be still, I think it's going to be transformational. So I appreciate you both for so much for doing that. And thank you all for joining with me on today. And remember, live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.